Yes, hello, good afternoon. This video will be posted on YouTube. My name is Daniel Fitzgerald. My wife's name is Jennifer Fitzgerald. And I've already updated Daniel and Jennifer's Nazi case. Daniel and Jennifer's FIT ... Nazi case against Canada government and police. Okay? I updated that video and it replaced the one I had posted 3 years ago. And I'm doing a separate video here. I may post it under another brand name because now I need to reflect on Daniel and Jennifer's Nazi case against Canada in a different fashion. This is a little bit different. And I'm just trying to think how to start this. You can see in the camera image, you can see two books, okay? And you can see my menorah in the middle. Those two books represent Canada's government and opposition, as well as NATO states of the British government, as well as Germany, France, and the United States, okay? I'll just start with those five. These two books that you see in front of you represent the true identity right now of Canada, its territorial governments, its judicial, its security, and its opposition parties and its governments, primarily made up of liberals and conservatives, including the UK and Germany and France and the United States. Why are these two books of significance? They're of significance because these two books, Prime Minister Trudeau, Mr. Poilievre, and the rest of you in the House of Commons, these two books are number one and number two primary historical evidence to prove of your application of Nazi policies by Adolf Hitler against Daniel and Jennifer Fitzgerald here in Canada, okay? I want to make that clear to you, Trudeau, and you, Mr. Attorney General, and you, Supreme Court of Canada. I want to get the story straight. You're doing things in public. You are sending us, my wife, which is really pissing us off, because I'm going to put it on YouTube now. I like to tell YouTube viewers that my wife, Jennifer Fitzgerald, this is how we'll start this, received an email about within the last 2 months from an unknown figure, essentially telling her to pay him $1,300 or else he would unload a bunch of cyber pornography to various organizations unless he paid her. He also made reference to our purchases on YouTube. So this entity has access to our Amazon account. What is it? Hold on. What? I said Amazon account. My wife said it YouTube. I'm sorry, Amazon account. This person told us that not to go to the police, that this person was unidentifiable. This person has done it again using an address located at is it the University of Ottawa? The University of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, with an email address which is probably non-existent. My wife found this in her spam box or junk mail. Hotmail automatically transferred it. Again, this person is accusing my wife of spreading pornography on the internet and so on. And I'm frankly sick of it. I don't receive such emails in my Gmail. I never do. This is aimed at my wife. My wife is being followed illegally by the police practically all the time. I am also being followed by the police. And I'd like to indicate that this video is directed to the Russian Federation Embassy here, who is representative also of the Permanent Security Council in New York City under Russian Ambassador Vasily Nezbeznia, okay? These two kinds of emails being sent to my wife are crystal clearly very threatening provocations by a person who's keeping their identity quite a big secret. This person, has been hacking our Amazon account as well. And this means that this person is a dirty, filthy sexual predator working for the government. This person is not who he claims to be, okay? This person is a dick, okay? Well, let's just put it this way. He doesn't have that particular luggage, obviously. And this person is hiding in some government department, harassing my wife in her email. And this person will not stop doing this. So this is not the reason for the posting of the video. It's just the most recent events.
It could be the police themselves.
Could be. My wife and I, we do not involve ourselves with any form of pornography, adult or otherwise. We do not prey on children. We do not, never have preyed on children. We are not of that character. Okay, I'm going to make that very blunt. Okay, and we've been in Ontario, Quebec since 2006. There is nothing at all, zero, okay, that these people can accuse me or my wife of being child predators or anything else. Okay, and I am letting people know out there. This is, again, the Canadian government, and I want to report this to all on YouTube who can see the video. They are in a world of trouble, okay? And their world of trouble is closing in on them, and they know that. We have 2 counts of attempted murder of myself. One by gassing and one by poisoning of my food. In both cases, I nearly expired. We have another criminal allegation against Mr. Prime Minister in his province of Ontario. Another count of attempted murder by what I refer to as a wild dog, a rogue police officer in his vehicle who pulled out of traffic and intentionally tried to run my wife over at Vanier Parkway and Montreal Road in 2017. We have 2 counts of attempted murder of our newborn child in July 2006, or maybe early on, I'm not sure. No, it would have been July, at BC's Grace Hospital when she was an infant, okay? Because of a doctor who left my wife on a drug, didn't take her off it, and knew that drug would bring harm to her unborn child inside her. And the government's trying to cover that up. And I don't like repeating this, but this is the truth. The Russians have the evidence, or parts of it. The government of Canada, in what I guess they want to call their defense, along with their filthy territorial governments of Quebec and Ontario and BC, they don't want to defend themselves or answer to our allegations through the prosecutor's office at the ICC. The government of Canada has a right to defense of our allegations as the applicants to the criminal prosecutor, Mr. Khan, at the ICC. Canada has a right to respond to any formal investigation by the prosecutor's office regarding our complaints, regarding Canada's clear-cut violations of the Rome Statutes. And I'm just not talking about our attempted murders here. But there's more to it than that. Because Canada applied Hitler's restrictions and Nuremberg laws. For a country and a government that, says it plays by the rules. No, they don't. If you have criminal evidence, okay, against the government of Canada or their security or their provinces, okay, anything. If you have evidence against a doctor, if you have evidence whether with criminal intent or simply non-criminal intent, but some form of a legal act, okay, and you try to go public with it, they will try and get you first, okay? This is their policy, and they will shut you down. They will have crimes committed against you. The Parliament Hill here, they will have their territorial governments They're neo-Nazi colonials in security and all the recruited street thugs, gangs. They will send out rumors about you, your family, your children. They will say you're a pedophile. They will say you rape old women. They will say, you steal wheelchairs from sick people. They'll make up any kind of garbage. They'll create witnesses against you for their garbage. Okay, they will download pornography into your laptops. They will download pornography into your phones. You have no idea, people, the culpability of the Nazis and organized criminal group infiltration into Canada's governments and into their security and what they're truly capable of. I know because I'm a man of experience and I survived it, and so did my wife. I could go on and on for hours in this video explaining to you people in Canada. I could just go on and on to no end. Well, my wife and I had 2 boats in the province of Quebec. Actually, we had 3 boats in the province of Quebec. 2 of them were named after Jacob in the Bible. Okay, they came after both of them, like no tomorrow. No reasons indicated, nothing, 0. They just came after. They came to wreck everything we owned. The whole country was after my wife and I based on rumors, propaganda by the filthy government of Canada, okay, and their territorial governments, all for a cover-up. That's what they did. They wanted to, at one point we found out that the police in Quebec were going to snatch my wife. Now get a load of this. Now get this, Canada. Get it right up your things. The police were going to kidnap my wife and throw a dead body on her, or throw her on a dead body, and then charge her with murder. They had that plan. Okay? That's just one. If you try to file a lawsuit against any government officials of the provinces of Canada, the Attorney General, the police, federal institutions under ministries of the federal government provinces, and you file any kind of civil lawsuit against their ministries or them, they will go to the police and they will try and frame you with a crime. That's what they pulled on us, right, Quebec? Okay? The other item is, if you have evidence against them, evidence of the ministries of the government of Canada, okay, in any province in this country, and you have any evidence against them, okay, they will have you illegally locked up in a mental ward of a hospital. They'll send in corrupted psychiatrists, because what they try to do is have you committed before you can get your huge evidence package and photographs of criminal acts committed by Nazi balds, pricks with ears in the police, and their recruited biker thumpers. Okay? They use business people and businesses. They hack your bank accounts and stick 13 as your balance, the police and the government. They use the courts against you. The police have nice private conversations with judges in clerks' offices so that they're prejudiced against you. Okay? I think that this is pretty clear. If you can build a case against the government of Canada, if they find out that you're collecting evidence against them, if they know that you're writing a journal and everything, they and their security are pulling with their other gangs and thugs on the streets, business owners and so on, who smash up your property, and they find out that you have a huge criminal file against them, and you have documented everything that's happened, every time you were threatened illegally by the police, every time you're kicked off Crown land by the police illegally, in your boat. Every piece of evidence you collect, if you have a file, I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot give it to the United States government. Because the thing is, there comes a point where a criminal file against the state reaches the international level when it goes beyond the internal domestic legal system of a country. Okay, when your file gets so big, what happens is it becomes an international criminal case because your government keeps trying to murder you because of the evidence you have. And there's various kinds of murder. There are the 3 counts of murder they tried to commit against my wife and I and our first child. There is the murder of our boats. And the government of Canada, these guys are bad. You know, they'll take your property and they'll try and create fictional bullshit excuses, excuse my colorful metaphor, to do that. Okay? They like to mix illegal things in, and the other thing they do is if you have a big enough case against them and they violated a particular act or acts, okay, according to their own rules, what they'll do is they'll go in the House of Commons and they'll all pass a bill making the acts legal after they've already committed them when they were illegal. This happened to us. These are warnings to people out there about Canada. This message is aimed at the ICC in The Hague for Mr. Khan. This message is aimed for the Russian Federation in New York City and their embassy here. I'm making that clear right now. This is not for the Canadian government, nor is it for their parliament or their territorial governments, because they are the defendants. Okay? So I'm giving you points of evidence against them, lots of them. The Trudeau government started censoring YouTube, okay? As you all know. Why? Why would they do that? Well, I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to cover this very broadly. The reason why they're doing it is not because of Canadians on YouTube who are committing, racist commentaries or hateful speech or anything else. That has nothing to do with it, really. The reason why they're censoring YouTube and they're keeping this hidden, the real reason is because they want to censor all their victims, the Canadian government, their securities, and their territorial governments. They want to censor all their victims from exposing the very evil, dirty, criminal deeds by these filthy governments of Canada. Primarily, the Liberals and Conservatives. Both of them are in together. Don't believe a word that Poilievre says. Don't believe a word that anyone in his party says. Don't believe a word of what Trudeau says or his government. Don't believe it. There is no one on YouTube from Canada, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm on it quite a bit, who's violated anything. The only person on YouTube that I can find where I am being limited regarding exposure, my videos, is me. It's me, okay? They are able, the government of Canada and their security are hacking my YouTube account. They've, just as an example, I tried to open up comments on my videos to see how many comments I got, okay? And then I was informed that my videos are private, okay? Now, in order for my videos to be private and people not to make comments, means I have to go into my account on YouTube and I have to turn on the blue privacy icon to the on position, in which case my videos are private and no one can leave comments. I did that, so I went in and checked it the other day. The privacy's off, which means people should be able to leave comments in my videos, but someone else has overridden my right to set the settings in my YouTube account, and they've made all my videos private so no one can leave me a comment, okay? This is Canada. When you have dirty criminal laundry that falls under the Rome Statutes against the federal government and its dictatoriates, the police, Nazis, okay, and their filthy courts, corrupted, deeply corrupted, When you understand what I'm saying? So when you try to post anything, they won't let anyone see them. They restrict people from leaving comments, and because they're trying to isolate their victims. That's what they've done to my wife and I, is sheer isolation. I called the Russian embassy here last week. I called them on Monday. I used to get through to the Russian mission in New York City for the ambassador of Russia to the UN. I've been called there for almost 9 years, and they always receive my calls. Always. I don't think there was a time they didn't. If they didn't, it's because there was no one there to receive them, or they were too busy, because they're short-staffed because of sanctions. And then 2 or 3 months ago, all of a sudden I can't get through there, and I'm getting recordings from Canada in French and English when I dial the Russian Federation mission number in New York, first telling me the line wasn't available or busy. Then it went from that to the phone number's out of service. Okay. Then I called more recently. This time it was an American recording from the United States, a male, stating that the Russian Federation United Nations mission phone number hasn't been allocated yet. Okay? So, you understand? So this is the American government in coordination with Canada blocking me from calling the Russian Federation in New York City. My wife and I have a right to call any UN member state in New York City. Every Canadian has that right. And they block that. And chances are this video I'll post it on YouTube, but I'm not, I might get one view every month. Okay? I've got videos on YouTube. I should have gotten 10 to 100,000 views. I had, as I said in the beginning, one video posted 3 years ago, Daniel and Jennifer's Nazi case against Canada government and police. Okay, that was there. It was 20 minutes long. It was there for 3 years. I got exactly 45 views in 3 years. While the videos below me, including the Hunka matter and other videos that were like 10 months old, got between 10,000 and 7 million views in 10 months. And in 3 years, I got 45 views. Okay? So I'm just, I'm informing the public. Like, I don't know. It probably won't work because I guess I have to, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm gonna have to think it over and see what exactly I'm going to do, because I'm not sure yet. So we have this huge case against Canada. Okay, I have threatened the government of Canada with the ICC. I'm going to send a video. I may send this link. I'm not sure if I can or not, but I may send this link to the ICC. I might just send this video over to Khan's office there at The Hague. The ICC never closed our file. They just simply said they didn't get any evidence. Oh, really? Well, ICC, did you get the package? Mr. Khan, check and see if your former colleague, Miss Basuda, got the package the Dutch embassy here in Ottawa sent to you from my wife, Jennifer Fitzgerald. You need to check on that, Prosecutor Khan. So I tell you people that out there that, I just spent 23 minutes on this video. I'm going to upload it to YouTube. For what reason, I don't know, but I have it in my records on the phone, so I'm going to send it to the ICC once I get the link. Again, I'll send this to the International Criminal Court in The Hague and tell them, look, my wife and I, we're being held in political exile here. We're being blocked from getting any information on our case outside the country. This has been going on for quite some time. The Trudeau government, we allege, has been buying countries here, try to buy off countries here we give our evidence to. We can't type up our evidence or more of it on a laptop because they hacked. We just got a laptop a year or so ago. The minute I turned it on, it was being destroyed. Okay, the whole screen went. It just went. I mean, there's these little vertical lines in it, and just got, every time I turned it on, it got worse. So this is the case. It's impossible for us to appeal to the ICC with any statements or evidence because the Trudeau government, Canada, needs to be told by the prosecutor's office that to stop their unlawful activity of blocking our statements, emails, evidence to the ICC. The ICC has to stop and tell Canada, okay, that they cannot do this, okay? The prosecutor has to tell Canada that. And I suggest that he do that, but don't be formal about it, Mr. Prosecutor. You're going to have to say it in the open. You're going to have to publicize. Canada's a full member of the ICC, okay? Canada claims that it follows international human rights at the UN. Canada claims that it does not violate the Charter of Human Rights of the UN. Canada claims it does not violate the Charter of Human Rights here in Canada. Canada claims that it does not violate the Rome Statutes. Canada has violated all three repetitively. That's what our case is all about. Okay, so that's the bottom line. I mean, that's the truth. Okay. The Russian embassy here, they do take our calls. I'm able to call the foreign ministry in Moscow. Canada probably doesn't care about that because they're so far away. But when it comes to the embassy here, that's a different story. Now we're getting cut off from the Russian embassy. It's not them doing it. They're not going to answer the phone and then hang up. I mean, they're just, they're not going to do that. Why answer the phone then? Why even bother? They know it's me when I call. I've been calling them for years. They're very kind at the Russian embassy. They know that I'm very angry. I've even gotten angry at them a few times, maybe probably unnecessarily, and but they understand why I'm angry overall. That it's just fed up with the Russian government can put the hammer down on Trudeau and his filthy parliament and his territorials anytime they want. They have all the evidence, okay? And I'm gonna say to you people that Trudeau may think, okay, in theory, in theory, that they will get away. That NATO will not act against Canada on their own based on our evidence. Yes, they will. Because Canada has broken international law. The Canadian government, believe it or not, folks, is no better than the Israeli Zionist Nazi government, okay? I'm an expert on the Holocaust. I'm an expert on Nazi security of Adolf Hitler. I want to cover that ground a little bit. I know every day-to-day threat, intimidation, surveillance, beating, criminal vandalism, psychological torture that Hitler's Gestapo, Kripo, SA, SD, SS committed against the Jewish people inside Germany from 1933 to 39-40. I know every criminal act, threat, and intimidation, every piece of propaganda Hitler used. Der Stürmer, I'm sure some of you are familiar with Der Stürmer. Every arrest of every religious deacon, nuns, and German citizens who Hitler felt had evidence against the state. He sent them to Dachau. He had them continually threatened with security, under surveillance. It was just endless, okay? I know everything. And the Trudeau government and his parliament are Nazis, okay? Plain and simple. And they've recruited many extraterrestrial Nazis. This is risky to point this out on YouTube. You people on YouTube, you see these pale white tall balls spreading throughout NATO security, civilian security, the military, reaching the highest levels of admirals, generals, colonels, majors, chiefs of police, assistant chiefs of police, commissioners, assistant commissioners, okay? That's the problem right there, okay? And I can prove it. I have all the proof I need. I not only have proof of this in our case, but I also have proof now that the government of Canada used Nazi policies against the freedom protesters. the attacks against them and the bullshit statements by Trudeau to the Parliament about them. Lies, lies, lies. Lie after lie. Okay? And the acts against the protesters, the physical criminal beatings and throwing to the ground and so on, these are all in violation of the Rome Statutes. Okay, so I got Trudeau on that one and the opposition. And I also have now more evidence because of what the British government in the UK has been doing against their people. Okay, we have video evidence of a new political party in the UK trying to gain support in a small community there. A videoed evidence of the police coming in, telling them to leave the town or they'll be arrested. They respond, say, what if we go down the next block? They'll be arrested. This again falls right in within the Reichstag fire decree. Then we have British citizens being arrested and charged and sent to jail for posting ridiculously uncriminal things. Absolutely. They arrested a former British military official. He was standing at a riot, watching. They arrested him. Didn't matter what he said. He served in Afghanistan for his government. He's a decorated soldier. And he was just simply watching the riot, and they came in, busted him. He's got a year in jail. That's what you do to your own service people. You know, so what we have there is not Stasi, not President Xi Jinping. Excuse me, people. I'm an expert on fascism and the Hitler Reich. Okay, what we have is the Reichstag fire decree, folks, which I have right here somewhere. I don't know where I put it. It's here. I have to find it. It's very close at hand. Somewhere. Somewhere here in my labyrinth of information. The government of Canada, NATO, essentially, and this is what I'm going to the going with the ICC, is that Canada and NATO governments are Nazifying the states. Their states internally, they're doing this now. The UK's done this already. We can see it. It is the Reichstag fire decree, folks. Without even a joke. It's not a joke. It's not funny. It is the truth. And I'm looking for it right now. No, is this it? Yeah, this is it. Why did I put it in there for? I got it here for you people on YouTube. I'm going to read to you. This is the Reichstag fire decree. Let me just put it up here. I got it off the internet quite some time ago. Now, you won't find this. You will not find this. Sorry for the stain. It's the original. You will not find this on Google in all one piece, okay? In other words, what they did was, after I had copied this years ago from Google, so here, let me just show you. There's the first page, okay? You can see it there. This is page 2, but it's not just the Reichstag fire decree. It's also the Nuremberg laws against the Jewish race. Now, I'd like to get some views on YouTube. I will inform the Russian Federation on Monday of this video. Write down the title before I post it so I can remember what the title is. So I can look it up. Canada doesn't, before I go on with the fire decree, Canada doesn't want me talking to the Russian Federation now and their embassy, because we need to give the Russians updates on things that have happened to us here. But now Canada's, I'm trying to tell them something on the telephone, and all of a sudden I get cut off. It's not them doing it. It's not them. I know it's not them, because common sense dictates, folks, right? If a government doesn't want you to talk to them, you'll get a knock on your door by security. If a government doesn't want to talk to you, they'll hang up the phone. They won't answer the phone. They'll hang up the phone. Okay, you could say, well, the Russian Federation embassy here can't see my phone number on their display. But here's the thing: every time when I call them, when my iPhone caller ID is off, it means that when I call them and dial their number, my number will not show up on their display. Okay? When I call, now get this, when I call the Russian embassy here in Ottawa, and my caller ID is off, which means when it dials them, my number's not showing up on their screen. They will not answer the phone. They won't answer it, okay? They won't. But then I turn my call display on. Okay, I turn my ID on, and so when I call them, they can see my number. When I turn it on and I call them, they answer. When I turn my caller ID off, they won't answer. Okay, because they want to know who's calling them. When it's me, they answer the phone. Why bother? Why bother? What's the point of that? Okay? What's the point? I've been in touch with Moscow, the Foreign Affairs Ministry. They keep telling me to email them. I have. How they know I have? They call this department the DSO office. I don't know what that means, but anyway. District Security Office, maybe. I mean, I don't know. But they asked me to do that. I did email their DSO 2 months ago. Okay. I knew that they would never get the email because the ICC never got our emails. Do you understand? They never got them. I was told they didn't get them by the ICC. We emailed the High Commission of Human Rights 4 years ago. Then I called them, talked to them. The man told me, we didn't receive your email. It's not on my screen. He says to me, email us again. Make sure your names are clear. And then call us. I did. I emailed him again. I called him a week later. He put me on hold. Never received our emails. We sent handwritten letters out to the UN member states by mail. My wife did through the post office. We sent we sent registered letters out as well to the White House in Washington. We sent registered letters other places. We sent snail mail letters to the Buckingham Palace. Okay, they never received them. There was no one received them. Confirmed by me because I called them. And they said, well, we never received it. The White House said for 12 weeks, they were looking for our big letter, an application to former President Barack Obama. They were looking for it all over the White House. They kept telling me to call back, and they every 2 weeks call back. After 12 weeks, it still never arrived at the White House. Then they said it might have reached the State Department. Well, no, didn't go to the State Department because you know why? Because they didn't get it. Because your government on Parliament Hill has my wife and I's photographs. All of our letterheads are being flagged at the post office here, Canada, aren't they? You're stealing our letters, Trudeau. Aren't your Mounties doing that? Yeah? Okay. Letters sent to the British mission in New York to Mary Pierce 4 years ago when she was on the Security Council. They never got theirs neither. Yeah. You know what happened? The letters were sent back to us with little stickers on them saying they were undeliverable. Now, Canada, let's just get to the truth here. Now, the truth is, Canada, okay, and ICC, Russia, the truth is Canada's guilty of everything we stated. Because if Canada was not guilty, then Canada wouldn't be blocking evidence from leaving the country. Now, you know, folks, that's common sense, isn't it? Now, common sense. You know, if your evidence against Canada is not being received by letterhead, by email, if you are being blocked on YouTube, you know, I'll give you an example. I know a few people on YouTube, okay? I know an American guy on YouTube who has a video that comes on the front page of YouTube. He's a nice guy. He's a Christian. He's known on YouTube as World News Report Today, okay? He put out a comment, something about corrupted police and stuff like that. So I sent him a comment directly and I said, well, you know, I have a case against Canada. Would you like to hear about it? He said, sure. I asked him if he would do an interview with my wife and I on his YouTube site because he gets millions of views, this guy? He said, sure, maybe. Tell me. I want to know about what happened. So I sent him a brief paragraph on our murders, and our child. I never heard from him after that. He didn't send me a comment back. Okay, so I contacted him the next day. I sent him a comment. He says, no, I never received it. I never received anything. So then I sent it to him again, and I still didn't hear from him. And then I asked him again, well, did you receive this? And this time I didn't even get a reply. Okay, because he didn't even get my asking him the second time if he received it the second time. Right, Canada? Okay, this is all, folks, Mr. Trudeau's police. They're Nazis, okay? And they are protecting the Canadian government at all costs with any evidence against them that could get them into trouble with the ICC, okay, or even their allies. That's what this is all about. That's what this is about for a long, long time. Now, moving on now. As I said before, here is, I want you to pay attention to this at the moment. Here is the Nuremberg, the Reichstag fire decree. Okay, there it is. Now, let me read it to you. I'll go slow and I'll record the actual page for a Parliament Hill here, their security that just is not getting the label of exactly what they represent. Okay, and their NATO ally, the British. The decree suspended important provisions of the German Constitution, especially those safeguarding individual rights and freedoms and due process of the law. Restrictions means you can't do any of these things. None of you in Canada, nor in Britain, nor in any other NATO state. Now, folks, this is not Stasi, as some of you are saying in the UK. They're not Stasi. They are not, okay, they're not carrying the communist hammer and sickle. Your police, I'm sorry, big mistake. They are Nazis, and they are following your recruited British dog feces Der Stürmer, including the Tories. They are all recruited into the Nazi fold, just like Canada, okay? Now, right to assembly. How many innocent people, Der Stürmer, are you arresting under this Hitler Reich Nazi law? Freedom of speech. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, how many of you arrested for freedom of speech? Freedom of the press. Oh, Der Stürmer has now arrested British citizens for posting videos on YouTube. Aren't you just aren't you something, Mr. Der Stürmer? Gotta be the Stasi. Let's blame Joseph Stalin. Oh, better, let's blame China, as Polyev does in the House of Commons here in Ottawa. China and Trudeau. Oh yes, Trudeau has that hammer and sickle in his house all over the place. He's burnt the Canadian flag in his backyard on his barbecue, where he spends $50,000 a year on steaks and nice foods for his family, while Canadians starve. Okay. Removal of all restraints on police investigations. Well, Mr. Der Stürmer, here we go again. The fictional idea in people's minds by the British Nazi propagandists. It's Stasi. We're not Nazis. Oh, no. We're not Nazis. We're Stasi, says Der Stürmer. Free to arrest and incarcerate political opponents without specific charges. Ooh. Dissolve political organizations and suppress publications. Well, gee, seems to me a few days ago, Prime Minister Der Stürmer, SS Führer, that did your police not threaten to arrest a new political party who was on the streets of a small community and they were trying to gain support based on their right under the British Constitution when your recruited human SS arrived, Mr. Der Stürmer? What did they do? What did they say to these people, these Britons? Leave now, they said. You're not allowed here. A political party trying to gain public support from British citizens. And that one of these party members said to Mr. Der Stürmer's SS Gestapo in uniform, what if we go down another street? They said to the police. Well, if you do that, we're going to arrest you. There you go. What is that? Dissolve political organizations and suppress publications. arrest and incarcerate political opponents. There it is right there in black and white for those that don't habla. Explanation of the above. The decree was used as the legal basis for the imprisonment of anyone considered to be opponents of the Nazis and to suppress publications not considered friendly to the Nazi cause. It was one of the key steps in the establishment of one-party Nazi state. The decree was not accompanied by any written guidelines from the Reich government. This omission gave wide latitude in interpreting the decree to the Nazis, like Canada. Bill C-51. I actually I had this copied, and it was when Harper brought out Bill C-51. So this goes right back to Bill C-51, so I put it in there. Because Bill C-51 was essentially Stephen Harper, the Conservative Prime Minister of Canada, who was a tyrant that nobody liked, and all the people of Canada seem to have forgot about the Conservative Party in his regard. He was also a tyrant like Mr. Trudeau, I guess. And he didn't bring in Bill C-51 for terrorism or anything else, all these lies. He brought it in so that the police could go around and target anyone they wanted with Stevie Wonder's and the province's new IMSI devices they installed in their cars. So the police could go after any Canadian citizens with a criminal case against the government, harass them, intimidate them, follow them, block their mail, and so on, okay? That was the reason for 51. Now, the problem with the Reichstag fire decree, here's what they've done. The British government has changed the wording, is what they've done. Okay, they've just changed the wording on it, but it's the Reichstag fire decree. Canada's proposing the same legislation with Mr. Trudeau's C-63 Reichstag fire decree. The Bill C-63 is a clone copy of the Reichstag fire decree. Okay. Now, remember this. Here's the thing. The Reichstag fire decree, when Hitler decided to bring this Reichstag fire decree and turn it into law, understand that he had all of the opposition in his Reichstag under threat, okay, to go along with it. The Communist Opposition Party, they were all sent to Dachau and murdered. The Social Democrats were, warned that if they didn't agree or they got funny about it, well, Hitler installed the SA in the Reichstag when he took power. The SA, you have to read up about them to understand why he did that. They intimidate the opposition. Not here, though. Here now, these new Nazis have actually recruited the opposition parties. For example, Melissa Landsman, she's Jewish, and other Jewish MPs in our House of Commons all clapped for Hunka. Okay, Melissa Landsman, according to her video last night on YouTube, all she could talk about was October 7th. She didn't have 1 ounce of repentance or remorse or compassion. For example, of the 2 Palestinian babies that were murdered, bombed, and killed while their father had just went down to have their birth certificates finalized. When he went down to get birth certificates for his newborn son and daughter, his newborn son and daughter were both killed while he was at the office doing this. Maybe the mother too, I'm not sure. And you got to see the video of him crying in tears. He just can't handle it. Okay, Reichstag fire decree. You got to remember, folks, listen. When Hitler took my people, the Jewish race, to Birkenau, Auschwitz, Rudolf Haas was the commandant. If you were a Jewish female woman, you had a baby inside you, you went to the gas chamber, you and your baby died. If you were a Jewish mother holding on to a couple of toddlers or 2 little children or a baby, you were both together. And sometimes they would grab the baby out of the arms of the mother, the Jewish mother, smash its head against a wall so its brains come flying out, and then the mother is just beside herself and she goes to the gas chamber. Or they would quietly, be nice to the mother and smile at her with her little kids in her arms, say, "Mother, come with." Rudolf Haas would say, "Mother, oh, these are your 2 beautiful little children," Rudolf Haas would say. "Oh, well, you stay here, Mother, and we're going to take you and your children to the shower, where you're going to take a shower, and we're going to give you clean clothes to put on, and then we're going to give you a room. Okay? That's what he said to them. And they had to take off all their clothes, and and they went into the showers. There were shower heads on the ceilings. They were not shower heads. These dropped Cyclone B. Okay? So the other thing with the Reichstag fire decree, which I want to point out, is remember that when Hitler brought this into law, he had already had a target list of people he wanted incarcerated long before he brought this law forward. So in other words, he already had people who he felt were a threat against the new government. He wanted to arrest them all, okay? So he passed this bill first, and then he arrested them all. He did not pass this bill and then have his police just simply picking up people and arresting them for committing an act after this bill was manifest and put into law. He first had a list of people like Trudeau does that he wants to go after, okay? And that Trudeau's doing the same thing with C-63, where they can make the bill law and they will come after you for things you said against them, okay, legally, before the bill was passed, okay? Well, that's what Hitler did. He did the same thing, and that's what Trudeau is trying to pull. The opposition is in deep with him, okay? Now, the problem with this is it is the Reichstag fire decree. It's not communism. I will tell all of you, look, if the British government were Stasi, or, Der Sturmer was, meeting with President Xi secretly in the men's washroom at 10 Downing Street, and they had a nice little secret that they were going to unify all the police under one communist hammered flag umbrella, then one has to think that why would Der Sturmer send shadow missiles to Nazi Ukraine to fire at Russia when Russia would be Britain's ally? Wouldn't President Putin be, would he not be the ally president to Der Sturmer if that were the case? Does that make sense to you folks, that the British government sending shadow missiles to Nazis in the Ukraine, the Nazi regime under Zelensky, to fire those shadow cruise missiles to kill Russians? Okay? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And then China is number one ally is Russia. So you tell me, is it Stasi? Is it Chinese communism for Canada and the British? I don't think so. And, these indicators by the British people in the videos I saw on YouTube during these events indicate to me that what's happening here, you have to understand, the British government is obviously cutting off the British people from knowing about the things they're doing in the Ukraine. If the British people say it's communism or Stasi, they're obviously not been made aware by their government that their government's sending shadow missiles to Nazi Zelensky, who is using them against, Der Sturmer's apparent ally, according to these British propagandists who say they're Stasi, the British police. So if they're Russian Stasi, why is Der Sturmer sending shadow missiles to the Ukraine to bomb his communist democratic colleague, leader Vladimir Putin, right? Or China? I mean, think about it, folks. Now, here's the thing. Down below this, you see the Reichstag fire decree. Now, also, the Reichstag fire decree was also aimed at a certain race of people in Nazi Germany. It was aimed at the Jewish people of Germany, who were German citizens in Germany, German Jews. The Reichstag fire decree was being used against them as well. They were a target for this bill. Again, plotted by Hitler before he even created this bill. Okay? So a lot of people were going down that Hitler already didn't like prior to this bill becoming law. Now, again, the problem with this Reichstag fire decree is this is what Mr. Trudeau and his government are trying to pull. There's already been Nazi racial violence against Canadians by neo-Nazi balds in the police. We've got videos proving this. These are Nazi brutality policies by these balds in security. They were the ones, by the way, who tried to gas me with a barbecue in 2009. Nazi bald security officials, okay? And they were playing German polka music through the vent of my cell when they tried to gas me Now, down below that, the problem here is the next step for Adolf Hitler after the Reichstag fire decree was definitely, and it was aimed right at the Jewish race. It is called the Nuremberg Laws. Okay? Now, but first I'll read you up here the second paragraph, which is the Reichstag fire decree and the Enabling Act and Canada's Bill C-51. Summary. The Enabling Act was passed in both the Reichstag and Reichsrat on March 23, 1933. Was signed by President Paul von Hindenburg later that day. The act stated that it was to last 4 years unless reviewed by the Reichstag, which occurred twice. The law was enacted by the Reichstag meeting at the Kroll Opera House, where non-Nazi members were surrounded and threatened by members of the SA and SS. The communists had already been repressed and were not allowed to be present or to vote. And some social democrats were kept away as well. In the end, most of those present voted for the act, except for the social democrats who voted against it. Note that it was after the Reichstag fire decree that independent security inside the Reichstag was eliminated in favor of SA inside security. Okay, now none of this, I didn't write any of this. This is clone copied from the internet. Okay, I want you people to know I didn't just create all this out of my mind. This is all clone copies of what I found on Google, all right? Now here's the Nuremberg Laws. Now remember, all of these were applied against my wife and I, all of it, okay? Because we had evidence against the government of Canada and they used Nazi policies to suppress us, my wife and I. Here's the Nuremberg Laws. Now, you see, the Jewish communities here in Ottawa and Canada, they need to worry because of that. And Jewish people in the UK need to worry about that. Okay? They need to worry because it's the Reichstag fire decree by the British and a possible attempt by Canada, as government on Parliament Hill this year or early next year before the next federal election. Okay? But here's the problem is after the Reichstag fire decree was enacted, then Hitler went directly after the Jewish people and he created this, the Nuremberg Laws, which have been applied against my wife and I, all of them. Random attacks on Jews and Jewish property. Police and courts no longer protect Jews. Jews no longer allowed electrical, optical equipment, bicycles, typewriters, records, recorders. Passports for Jews to travel abroad restricted. Jewish passports denied permanently. Jews' radios confiscated. Jews evicted from homes without reason or notice. Jews forbidden to use the telephone. New law designates Jews as subjects of the Reich. Psychiatric Nazi diagnosis of Jews for the purpose of genocide. The Nazi High Command denies atrocities against the Jews to the international community. Okay? All these were applied against my wife and I. Now, we're going to move on to part 2 of this video, which is going to be quite short because I'm already at 60 minutes and I have to upload it, I guess, to nowhere because none of you are going to be allowed to openly see my video. They're going to put it under private. Again, you can't comment on it. They're going to restrict the number of views I get. This is YouTube. And this is not YouTube. This is the Canadian government now running YouTube for YouTube with a set of regulations that are in violation of YouTube's regulations, okay? And these 2 books here are very important. If you read these 2 books, if you can find them, you will figure out what they've been doing since the end of the war, especially this one here. Okay, and I will read you all an example out of this book. Just this one. Not going to do that one. Well, I may do something out of that one too. Let's just hold on a minute here. Let's just look into my book, Hitler's Legacy. Okay, just a minute. These are the acknowledgements right here. You can see who's in the acknowledgements, take note that Simon Wiesenthal is mentioned here. It says, I have been inspired by a hatred of fascism and profound respect for Nazi hunters such as Simon Wiesenthal, the Clarfields, and Reinhard Strecker. My father, Paul Eshesh, an educated professional editor, also provided inspiration and help, as did my mother, Margaret Zed, who died as I was preparing to begin this project. So let's see, I've got a whole bunch of it. Excuse me, let me just put it over here. I only got one hand. I wish I had a GoPro. I don't have one. I was going to get one, I should have. Okay, so you can see I've got a lot of it highlighted. There's a reason for this. And this here is damage for Trudeau and Parliament Hill. All of it's damage. Like, for example, here's one. The Nazi regime really had no law because legal exceptions were always available to enable the regime to kill whomever it wanted to. Comparison between the two fallen regimes, however, is inevitable. Blah, blah, blah. This is the part I want to read you up here. Let me just move ahead. I'm just going to read you folks because I got to keep the video short. You can see as I go by, you can see all the highlighting. Let me just pull this back. All the hard work I did. This is all to convict Parliament Hill here and Canada. All of it. This is all, well, not this part. That's just, let me just move ahead here. Here we go. Now we get into the nitty gritty. Let me just find here. Let me see. What do I want to read people here? Wait a minute. I think it's on the next page. Here we are. This is page 72. The return of Nazi officials. Okay. Here we go. This is the part I want to read you people. The arrest on the 23rd of July, 1959 of Rhineland-Pfalz Chief of Criminal Police, George Hauser, focused concern on ex-Nazis commanding West German police forces. In 1942, Hauser had commanded the Nazi death squad, which murdered 70,000 victims in Belarusia. Hauser, born in 1909, had been an SS Hauptsturmenführer captain. He directed Hattelung IV, the Gestapo, at the Nazi police office at Minsk, the Belarusian capital city. Prosecutors took several years to bring his case to trial. It was held over 7 months at Koblenz in 1962-3. Trial proceedings took up to 60 full days of court time. So just read a little bit here. Hauser was the most prominent of 11 defendants in the Koblenz trial. The fact that his name on the Allied wanted list had been misspelled, Hauser had enabled him to escape post-war consequences for his SS role. In his post-war denazification proceeding, another police official provided him with a statement that he had done good deeds to secure a ruling that he had been a Nazi. He had been promoted a number of times before becoming chief of the Rhineland-Pfalz Criminal Police in 1958. Gee whiz, it's not long ago. Testimony at the trial indicated that Hauser murdered at least 200 victims with his own hands. He forced them to dig their own graves and on several occasions had them burned alive. Hauser apparently viewed the killings as just another duty to perform for the fatherland. One witness testified that he often referred to his victims as Judenswine. Through a defense witness stated that the Jewish identity of the victims was irrelevant to Hauser. Orders, even those requiring him to kill defenseless people, were meant to be followed. The Hauser trial also implicated Frederick Karl Vallon. In 1942, Vallon had been the Nazi official in charge of seizure of Jewish assets in Belarusia. Hauser's counsel forced Vallon to testify. By 1963, Vallon was a permanent secretary to the Bonn government's Third World Development Ministry. Although documents linked Vallon to the Belarusian confiscations, he denied any guilt. Rodenbrook, the judge in the case, stated that the documents were obviously authentic. The Nazi-era role of Wilhelm Fogg, a prosecutor in the Hauser case was exposed when one of the defendants remembered that he had been a special court prosecutor active at Minsk in 1942. One of those folk prosecuted at Minsk had been a Jew sentenced to death for having sex with a non-Jew. Radenbrook sentenced Hauser to 15 years in prison, disappointing some observers who felt he deserved a life sentence. The court was toughest on Franz Stark, an unrepentant Nazi who had joined the party in 1920. Stark received 3 consecutive life terms because he was a cold-blooded assassin, willing to commit murder even though he was not ordered to do so. Hauser's exposure led to closer scrutiny of high police officials in nearby province of Nordheim-Westfalen, the industrial center of West Germany. The Dusseldorf branch of the Public Employees Trade Union, OTV, Public Service, Transport and Traffic Workers, revealed the pervasive ex-Nazi influence on police command in Nordheim-Westfalen. As of September 1959, ex-SS or Gestapo officers headed the criminal police offices at Cologne, Dusseldorf, Dortmund. The police chiefs at Essen, Bonn, ranking police officers in smaller cities of Krefeld were also ex-SS officers. So what this points out, folks, is that Nazi SS were re-recruited as police chiefs in German police stations all over the country after 1945. Okay, there you go. And not only that, but guess what? Nazi judges hired by Hitler, reappointed as judges after the war. More than 1,700 Nazi judges reappointed to all the various court benches in Germany after the war. Nazi prosecutors that Hitler hired, Reich solid members. These prosecutors were reappointed as prosecutors in West Germany's government after the war, 700-800 of them, okay? And also one SS general. His name was, here it is, on page 75. Let me just read about this general. You might find this interesting, folks. West German authorities turned a blind eye to the Nazi past of their officials by strictly adhering to the doctrine that there was no legal validity to any judgments of any foreign court, including those of occupation tribunals, which had been active within the fatherland. This resulted in German authorities giving responsible jobs to war criminals convicted by Western courts. The fact that Wilhelm Harster had been an SS general should have precluded him from holding a responsible position in any post-war German administration. Harster's SS rank was much higher than that achieved, for example, by Adolf Eichmann, the coordinator of the Nazi Jewish extermination program. In 1947, a Dutch court convicted Harster of war crimes for his role as chief of the SD security service in Holland from 1940 to 1943. Dutch authorities released and deported him in 1955. When he returned to Germany, he was awarded the usual several thousand marks as a late returnee, privileged by the 131 law. He got a responsible job with the Bavarian Interior Ministry. The job spared the Bavarian exchanger the expense of paying him a monthly pension of 400 DM as a high-ranking late returnee. By 1963, my goodness, Harster had become the Ober something or other in charge of the Oberbayern subdivision of the Bavarian administration. That's the government. Harster had also been the SD Nazi Security Service chief in 1938-39 at Innsbruck. He was also chief of the Gestapo in occupied Italy from 1943 until the Nazi collapse in 1945. In 1961, Bavarian Interior Minister Alfons Goppel started proceedings to dismiss him, but were soon dropped. He announced that he had suspended the effort because Harster had only been convicted for doing his duty as police chief. Imagine that, eh? Police chief. Ooh, Mr. Trudeau. Hello, Justin. Hello, Premier Ford of Ontario, Canada. Hello. Are you reading this? Hello, RCMP. Baldies. Hello. I'm ringing your doorbell. Why don't you answer? Or how about you Nazis in the Ottawa Police Service, eh? All you recruited. Okay. Hello. Sorry, folks, there's no real reply. Okay, where was I? Okay. We knew of Harster's former position. We also knew that he had been sentenced. But we had no idea what he'd done. He was a correct official in an incorrect system. Wow. An incorrect system, eh? That's a nice way of saying, well, he was an SS general and murdered lots of Jews, but it's not his fault because the system that he was serving, in other words, Hitler, was incorrect. Gee, isn't that a backwards bullshit excuse for a filthy SS Nazi murdering bastard who was rewarded by the German West government? Rewarded. Let me just keep reading. Harster's Bavarian bosses decided that they could ignore the fact that the SS operative had boasted that he had directed the elimination of 100,000 of Holland's 140,000 Jews. Heinrich Junkel, Goppel's successor as Bavarian Interior Minister, also defended Harster. When queried about the SS general's wartime role, Junker also stated that Harster had only been convicted of carrying out police actions for the Nazi regime in Holland. Oh my goodness, there we go again, eh? Police again. Mounties, wake up, smell my criminal roses against all of you across Canada and the others. Okay. Yes, where was I? Yes. Police actions for the Nazi regime in Holland. Eichmann, the coordinator of the Jewish extermination program, had given high praise to Harster's work in Holland. The fact that Harster had developed rheumatism in his hip by 1963 allowed him to be conveniently retired, defusing the controversy. The disability enabled him to receive a pension of over 1,000 DM monthly, generous in the context of German price levels of the 1960s. German prosecutors put Harster on trial for his role in deporting Holland's Jewry to Auschwitz. His co-defendants were his deputy in charge of Jewish affairs, Wilhelm Zoft, his office secretary, Gertrude, who zealously and efficiently oversaw the extermination effort. The court convicted them. Let's go to the next page and see what happened. I'm almost scared to look. I didn't highlight it. That's not good. It means he probably got off. Let's see. February of 1967, Harster received a 15-year sentence. He was pardoned less than 2 years later because he had shown remorse at the trial. My goodness. How do you show remorse for murdering 140,000 human beings, women, children, babies? You think the Israeli Nazi government would know something about all this, eh? After they murdered how many thousands of little innocent babies of the Palestinian people, including unborn children and a couple of babies just today, as I pointed out. Harster was not the only person in the Bavarian service who had been convicted of war crimes by a Western court. I'm having a hard time pronouncing this one. Otto Bovensiepen, the Gestapo chief in Denmark, had been sentenced to death by a Danish court, but later pardoned. Oh my goodness. This had not precluded the Munich police from hiring him. Oh my goodness. One of Bovensiepen's subordinates at Copenhagen, Wilhelm Gurek, an SS captain, rose to an executive position with the West Berlin police. Oh my goodness! I'm sorry, Herr Führer, Trudeau, and Polyev. Excuse me, you really need to read about what you people on Canada's Parliament Hill have been secretly doing to your police. It's all right here, Mr. Prime Minister Trudeau, Mr. Polyev, Mr. Stevie Wonder Harper, who is running around loving the Jewish community here, getting their votes and all their money to be Prime Minister, while Stephen Harper, Prime Minister Harper, running around promoting Nazi skinhead security balds as police chiefs, even sitting next to one in Quebec with the former premier of Quebec, Pauline Marois, with Chief Baldy, Nazi SS, sitting right in the middle. Okay, trust me, folks, I know what I'm talking about. Let's go on here. So what happened? Let's see. Okay, let's reread this. Harster was not the only person in Bavaria's service who had been convicted of war crimes by a Western court. Otto Bovensiepen, the Gestapo chief in Denmark, had been sentenced to death by a Danish court, but later pardoned. This had not precluded the Munich police from hiring him. One of Bovensiepen's subordinates at Copenhagen, Wilhelm Grurak, an SS captain, rose to an executive position with the West Berlin police. Some German prosecutors also benefited from the fact that foreign convictions were not recognized by German law. Joseph Weineck was convicted by a Luxembourg court for his role in the judicial murders of Luxembourg resistance figures in a Nazi special occupation court. Grand Duchy authorities allowed Weineck to go on a furlough to a neighboring German province of Rhineland-Pfalz. He elected to stay there despite his status as an escaped felon. Rhineland-Pfalz authorities appointed Weineck a prosecutor. Oh my God! My goodness! History speaks. And I'll mention that in a moment. Leo Drach, another Nazi special court prosecutor in Luxembourg, was also convicted by a post-war Luxembourg court for his part in the judicial murders of resistance figures. Drach, after serving several years of his 20 years prison sentence, was deported across the Mosel to Rhineland-Pfalz in 1954. Rhineland-Pfalz authorities later claimed that the 131 law had compelled them to hire him as another prosecutor at Nazi. Both Drach and Weineck, like Harster, had received the customary promotions. Okay, let's see. Weineck, despite his status as an official felon, did not feel the need to keep a low profile. In 1959, he created controversy by speaking out for an independent judiciary. This seems like a desirable goal, but Weineck had an axe to grind. He was using the concept to attack the idea that the authorities should be able to remove unsavory Nazis from jobs in the legal system. Luxembourg authorities said nothing when Weineck spoke out, even though it was fairly well publicized. He was also on various published lists of Nazi blood judges who had been reappointed to jobs in the West German legal system. Somehow, Drach's past had not only been publicly disclosed, but lawyers in Rhineland-Pfalz were well aware of his record. One of them, Franz Hock, revealed his knowledge in a letter to anti-fascist jurist Barbara Just Dahlmann in response to a speech she gave in December 1961 concerning the issue of ex-Nazi police officials. Hock also disclosed that Otto Bongnack, a judge in the court in Bad something or other, who had earlier been a judge of the Luxembourg Special Court, which had employed Drach and Weineck as prosecutors, had also been convicted by Luxembourg authorities after 1945. The presiding judge of that court had also been convicted by a Luxembourg tribunal after 1945. Hold on. This fact was not preventing German authorities from paying him a generous pension as a retired judge. Hoch suggested that Luxembourg authorities failed to object to the reemployment of these men because the Grand Duchy was economically dependent on Germany. He characterized the four men as a cabal of conspirators mutually defending each other from the exposure of their records. A justice system employing Nazi criminals is vulnerable to attack on that basis. Hock was not the only person who knew the facts. Wilhelm Noack finally exposed the scandal. Drach zealously prosecuted Noack, a former finance minister of Rhineland-Pfalz, for corruption in office. The prosecutor is disappointed when Nowak received 6 months suspended sentence. Drac prepared to refile similar charges against Nowak at the end of 1964. The former minister struck back with a letter to the Frankfurter News Press announcing his refusal to submit it to a second prosecution by a convicted war criminal. The Luxembourg Foreign Minister Pierre Werner stated that Drac had indeed been convicted by two courts in 49 and 51 based on his actions as special court prosecutor during the Nazi era. The Rhineland-Pfalz Justice Minister Schneider declared that Drac's actions had been legal because they had conformed to the law as it existed at that time, i.e. during the Nazi era. The scandal gradually heated up during the early weeks of 1965. The records of Weineck as well as Brauneck and others were disclosed. Bond's Justice Minister Bucker, who also felt obligated to defend the special court felons. Luxembourg authorities indicated that the men had been war criminals. The opposition demanded a full investigation. Though Weineck's conviction had been widely known, his refusal to return from a prison furlough was publicly revealed for the first time. 6 months later, the Rhineland-Pfalz Parliament confirmed the dismissal of Drac and Weineck, but following the usual pattern, allowed them to retain their pension rights. So, I'm just telling you folks that this is just, this is just some of the stuff. These are reference materials, okay? But Canada's done the same thing, You see, Trudeau, like Hitler, Trudeau and his government would have to pre-hire enough Nazis in the police, had enough judges on the bench, because if Trudeau does not have enough Nazis in the police to carry out the violations of his 63 bill, C-63, if he doesn't have enough people recruited in the judicial system before he tries to pass the bill in the House of Commons, what's going to happen is the police are going to go around and arrest and charge people for the legal things under the charter, but the judges will throw the cases out. So that's not going to work for Trudeau. So the government, like Hitler, they have to have a plan, and they have to have Nazi persons in charge of the judicial all over the place, including security, so that when they go after all these targeted people for not breaking the law, arrest them and charge them, they have to ensure that the judges are going to convict, okay? And that's a violation. Trudeau's bill is a violation of Canada's charter completely. It's a complete, utter violation. The wording's changed. He's using what he refers to as hate speech. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Prime Minister, I can't find any Canadian hate speech anywhere on YouTube. The only speech I can find about hate for Nazi war crimes by your government against myself and my wife and my family is me, okay? Is only me, no one else, okay? And I'm going to say to people, listen, this book is going to convict Mr. Trudeau and his government and what they've been trying to pull. But you never know. I mean, Der Sturmer in the UK, he's really getting hammered. Right now, there's a report today that other world leaders are against him, and other world leaders are just beside themselves, okay? This Prime Minister of England, a Nazi, okay? He's an arrogant bastard with fluorized Nazi. He doesn't wear a swastika. He's just like Zelensky and the Nazi Anzop battalion and Nazis in his army. He's the same thing, okay? And he's doing it to his own people. So this is a British switchover from a democratic free state for the people to a Nazi state. This is not communism. It's no joke. Those people out there who are mixing this thing up, for some of you, I understand. Communist dictatorships of the past, their laws are also stern when it comes to freedom of speech and your rights to protest the government. Rights to form a new government are a no-no. With a communist government, they'll lock them up. This is true. But your governments would prefer that you believe they're communists, because this allows the Nazis in them and security to keep growing and using these laws against you, because you think that these are coming from communist ideals. Well, they're not. they want you to believe that they're communist, and they don't care, because covering with communism means that they can keep building up the Nazi state, okay? And they've got all of you citizens soaked into believing their bullshit that they're communists. I'm so tired of idiots on YouTube, folks. I have listened to a lot of people on YouTube who really don't know what they're talking about. They keep accusing Trudeau of being a communist. They're accusing, the Germany of being communist, its government, and Great Britain. That's not the case here. These are Nazis. Okay, I'm an expert. If what I stated was not credible, then your government of Canada would not be holding my wife and I in a legal forced exile. If I could get on YouTube and get the kind of public to, tens of thousands to listen to my videos, these governments would be in real trouble by their own people, because their people, based on what I'm saying, would be out calling them what they are, Nazis. And they are Nazis. President Putin said they're Nazis. They're Nazis. If the Russian president tells you all that your governments and your police are Nazis, they're Nazis. When Vladimir Putin stands before the international media and citizens of all countries, he says to you, NATO is supplying weapons to the Nazi regime of the Ukraine, okay? And in turn, they're using these against Russia. What does this tell the deaf, dumb, and blind? Are you Canadians that stupid and dumb? Okay? If President Putin says NATO states are supplying a Nazi Jewish regime in the Ukraine with weapons, then what is he saying NATO is? This means NATO governments are Nazis. Only Nazis, folks, supply Nazis. Listen, if they were communist, like some of you seem to think, some of you are Nazi police propagandists, okay, trying to confuse the people. And I'm very aware of Adolf Hitler doing this, using propaganda to send the German people around so confused and dazed, they don't know what to believe. And you people out there are working for Nazi bald police chiefs, and you're posting things on YouTube, and you're lying, and you're giving them cover with this communist bullshit that does not apply. Non-applicable. Okay? And you have no right to be on YouTube as propagandists getting paid by your Nazi governments. You New York prepper. You Canadian prepper. Okay? And others of you on YouTube. I've been listening to your bullshit. Paul Bagley on YouTube. Bullshit. Okay? Another Nazi. Now they've Nazified the Israeli government is what they've done, because they want to destroy Russia and China. You see, folks, listen. Hitler's mission was to destroy and murder and exterminate 3 races of humans. The Russians, the Jews, and China. Because Hitler saw them all as a potential danger to the future of the Reich. Okay, Russia, communist. China, somewhere in between in the early 30s. There was wars going on in China communities between communists and Chinese government officials. And the Jews. Now ask yourselves a question. Here we have the exact same geographical military buildup at Russia's borders by the United States and NATO, same countries that Hitler owned, and he was 10 miles from Moscow. Remember that, Hitler's army, because Hitler had taken over all of the Eastern European countries, including the Balkans, the Ukraine, Poland, okay, and everything in between, all right? Now you take a good look at the map now, and you're going to see the map of Nazi Germany right now. That's NATO's map. Is the same as Hitler's, okay? Who are they targeting? Well, they're targeting Russia, and they're targeting China. The Imperial Japanese government was part of Hitler's Axis, and their mission, for Japan's imperial government and their military was number one, to invade China, and number two, to take on American forces in the Pacific Basin. Okay? Do you understand? And Hitler would take care of the Russians and the Jews. Well, what's missing right now? The only thing missing to convict NATO and the United States of repeating World War II against Russia and China, the only item missing is threatening the military and civilian destruction of the state of Israel and the Jewish race. That's all that's missing for the U.S. and its allies to be accused of being Nazi states. That's all that's missing. Okay? But what they did, the Nazis this time, the United States recruited a Jew, a puppet Jew in the Ukraine named Zelensky. This guy's an idiot. He is a comedian from television. That's all he is. He's an idiot. They recruited him. They turned him into a Nazi. They made him support the Nazi Anzaf battalion, which he did. They recruited Nazi balds in his Ukrainian army. Okay. He turned his police into not Stasi, but SS. Okay. His police arrested any person in the Ukraine who supported Russia or were friends with Russia. Any person in the Ukraine who liked Russians or liked Russian culture was summarily arrested by the Ukrainian Gestapo. Zelensky decided that Russian language in the Ukraine was illegal. Zelensky decided any Russian culture would no longer existed. Hitler did the same thing to the Jews. Amon Goth, the commandant of Plaszow, okay, which many of you know in the movie Schindler's List, he told the Jewish people in Plaszow on day one, he said, for 500 years or 600 years, the Jewish race has expanded in Europe, essentially is what he said. Your culture expanded. You became powerful in Europe, the Jewish culture. But by the end of the today, he said, that culture never existed. Now, do you folks out there who do get a chance to see my videos that are not the government of Canada and the Nazis poking their noses in my videos, hopefully my videos will go public this time. Hopefully a lot of people have access. So what the United States had already Nazified its Pentagon with what China and Russia are trying to refer to as extraterrestrials. Bingo. The reason why they're using the term extraterrestrial is because I have proof that we have a collective of alien humanoid extraterrestrials that look like us. They're balds. They are chalk white. They do not tan. They are nocturnal. They are an alien humanoid Nazi, essentially. And that may sound funny, but it's true. The Trudeau government, the governments of Canada secretly recruited them to take over security, the police, everything. They recruited our parliament leaders. They recruited NATO leaders. They have built themselves up in NATO military, okay? They're all officers, generals, admirals. The list is endless. This is the reason for the war against Russia and China, okay? Trying to repeat Hitler's losses is what they're doing. Now, stating that, what happened to Israel? Well, it's really simple. They brought Israel on board, and they brought in Netanyahu, okay? They installed, as any NATO state, Israel's not part of NATO, but the Americans were able to install, the American Pentagon were able to install alien Nazi bald generals, or they also have human generals who are not alien extraterrestrials, who are recruited by these generals, and they're raising them up in rank, human recruits, because they need them with hair to go out and commit Nazi crimes, Nazi police to go out and commit violations against their citizens and the Constitution because they've been recruited. And these police don't look like the aliens. They're not chalk white. They're human. They're recruits. So they're out now, fully recruited, indoctrinated to the alien, extraterrestrial, Nazi, bald, Hitler policies, and they're out enforcing them. And their leaders and governments are backing up the enforcement internally. Now, Israel joined up is what happened. So because the Israeli Nazi recruited Benjamin Netanyahu joined up with NATO and the United States Nazis, they went in with their generals who joined the Israeli army and murdered 38,000 Palestinians. The purpose of this was really simple. It's to threaten the Jewish races to be hated by NATO civilians, Gentiles in communities in NATO countries. So now we see, since the murders of 38,000 Palestinians, and this is continuing, what's happening here, this is building up hatred politically here in Canada and Great Britain and NATO states against Jews and their countries and Jewish communities. They've already got enough Nazis, alien Nazis, running their police as police chiefs, like I read you in the book here. They've recruited the entire departments. The police chief here in Ottawa, who replaced the last one, turns out he's a pale, white, tall, bald, okay? His first order of the day, which went public in the news media, was he told in a memorandum to members of the Ottawa Police Service, any of them that defended the freedom protesters here under their rights under the Constitution would be investigated. This is this police chief forcibly recruiting and getting ready, and Trudeau's wants to pass this Reichstag fire decree, and this police chief has already threatened or recruited his members in the Ottawa Police Service to enforce this illegal bill. It's a Nazi bill, okay? So I'm just explaining the preparation of what they're pulling. This video is primarily for the Russian Federation, and I'm going to give them the address of this video on YouTube. I will also ask them on my behalf, Ambassador Stepanov of the Russian Federation Embassy here in Ottawa, to record this video in his embassy, and I need him to send it by link to the ICC and a copy to President Vladimir Putin and the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov ASAP. That's where this video is going to go. Okay? They can record it right off of YouTube if they can access it. So I'm letting all you people know. It's not a joke. It's not funny. There's already been reports by Melissa Landsman, who I just can't stand, quite frankly. She even makes things worse. For the Jewish communities here, there are a lot of Jewish communities in Canada. Some of them, are pro-Israel. The only thing they can think of is October 7th and the 1,400 of our people, because I'm partially Jewish, who were murdered. But they were not murdered by Hamas. There's evidence in the beginning pointing out to the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu received evidence contrary to the allegation it was the Hamas. I saw the videos released, unfortunately, by the Israeli government, probably disappeared now, of these apparent Hamas flying into Israel in parachutes, fully armed, and IDF soldiers on the ground seeing these parachutes coming in and reporting it and being told to stand down and not to act. Okay? Then there's an official of Netanyahu who went on an old Facebook page or something the Israeli government doesn't use anymore, and he stated in that Facebook page that it was an inside job. Okay, all of this has been forgotten by... And then there was the videos of Jewish prisoners being released by the Hamas before news cameras. A number of these apparent victims who were Jewish being released before cameras that were posted on video on YouTube, showing the Israeli victims who were held hostage shaking hands and smiling at their captors and shaking their hands. Okay, we have Jews who were interviewed by news upon their release, and no one knew what they were going to say. In the case of one Jew, a female, she stated, "Oh, I was treated quite well. They never hurt me. They fed us. They never threatened us." In one case, one Jewish hostage who was released, stated that they were in her house with several other detainees, the Hamas. Okay, she said that the Hamas leader came to her in her house and said to her, "Can you please call the police?" And the lady said to the Hamas leader, "Why do you want me to do that?" Because he said, "We want the Israeli police to come here so we can kill them." He told her, "We're not out to hurt you or any of the people here. We're not going to hurt you. It's not our intention to do any harm to you at all. We want you to know that." Now, with that statement coming from a Jewish releasee, okay, does it make sense to you people out there that the Hamas are going to fly in to Israel and start shooting and killing Israeli women and children and raping them? No, that's not true. Okay? Because the Hamas would follow one policy. If their policy from their leader was to torture and rape and murder Jewish hostages, then they certainly wouldn't have been releasing them and telling the hostages to call the Israeli police to come down to their homes where they're located so the Hamas who are holding them can kill the police. Does this make sense to people out there? Melissa Landsman is a disappointment. She was in a video last night. All she could talk about was October 7th. She was talking about increased attacks against Jewish institutions here and threats against them. Well, sure, that's going to happen when Miss Landsman keeps defending the state of Israel and only refers to October 7th. Miss Landsman has shown, as far as I know, and don't quote me on this, but as far as I know, Miss Landsman has shown no remorse, compassion whatsoever for the murders of all these Palestinian people, especially children and babies and mothers. She has just, as far as I know, Stevie Wonder, Mr. Harper, he went to Israel more recently, hugging Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu met with Trump. Okay? And Trump should have never met with him. He's a war criminal. I'm a Jew. Other Jews in opposition have risen up. Israel David Weiss in New York, has given lots of evidence against the Zionists. Okay? I'm just telling you, there's a portion of Jews who have risen up against the Zionist government of Israel. Right now in Israel, Jews who are against him, for which is probably most of the population, they are too scared to go against him. They'll end up in prison. He's threatening to throw 60,000 Orthodox religious people into prison for refusing to join the army. This is what he's doing. He's doing the same thing Zelensky's doing. It's the same. The two of them are the same. They're both Nazi puppets for the new Western Nazi NATO Reichstag. Point blank. That's what the evidence says, folks. Okay? And Canada is part of that Nazi Reichstag. And Trudeau has been making changes to the police, okay, allowing balds, Nazi balds, who are violations of Canada's Charter of Civil Rights and Freedoms. And Trudeau has been allowing, along with the provinces, the absolute recruiting of these Nazis who are changing all of the departments to violate your constitution. Okay, that's it. I got to go. Shalom, God bless. Thank you. My heart goes out to the Palestinian people. I think I said the best thing I could say to Miss Landsman on YouTube yesterday. In part of my comment to her, first of all, I told her, I don't think you're going to get any sympathy at all anywhere, so forget it. I told her that, as far as I'm concerned, my position can simply be stated in a very short couple of sentences, that I believe that there should be wreaths laid at Auschwitz War Museum in Poland for the Palestinian people that have been murdered by the same thinking that murdered the 6 million Jews that were murdered at the 6 million Jews that were murdered, and 1 million or so, or 2 million of them murdered at Auschwitz I and Birkenau. And the Palestinian people murdered and the victims of the Holocaust that were murdered share the same memory and ideology that murdered them. Okay, that's the bottom line. I think that was fair on my part to state that, and certainly the Palestinian people deserve a monument at Auschwitz War Museum for being murdered by the same people, same thinking, that existed historically in 1933 to 45, known as Nazi Germany. That's what's happened. I can prove it to the ICC, Trudeau, that you're all in and you've all committed Nazi atrocities against the Russians, Nazi atrocities, and you have recruited Jews to be leaders within the Nazi Security Reich and NATO. Okay, that's what you've done. Point blank. Shalom. Thank you. And to the Palestinian people, God bless all of you. I'm with you. I'm partially Jewish, Christian, Orthodox, and my heart goes out this day to this Palestinian man, father, husband, who simply, he had two beautiful babies. He had a little boy and a little girl, twins, born to him. And after they were born today, he walked down to an office to have them registered. While he was at the office, his two little babies were murdered by Nazi Israel, who bombed them and killed them. Okay? Now get this. Whose bombs? Huh? The White House in the United States.